What if I told you that in 1943, deep in the Carpathian Mountains, a Romanian soldier discovered something so impossible, so terrifying, that the military buried his report for over 80 years? What if I told you that those footprints he saw stretching across the sky weren't just hallucinations, but evidence of humanity's most horrific experiment? Tonight, we dive into the classified files of Operation Celestial Pathway, and the story of Sergeant Mihail Dragos, the man who witnessed the impossible and paid the ultimate price for speaking the truth. But before we begin, let me ask you something. Have you ever looked up at the clouds and seen shapes that shouldn't be there? Faces, perhaps? Or worse yet, the impression of human feet, as if someone had walked across the heavens themselves. If you have, you might want to stop watching now, because what you're about to hear will change how you look at the sky forever. It was March 15th, 1943. The war had turned the Carpathian Mountains into a frozen hellscape where Romanian and Soviet forces clashed in brutal winter combat. Sergeant Mihail Dragos, a 32-year-old career soldier from Brasov, had been assigned to a reconnaissance patrol along the remote Făgăraș Ridge. What made this patrol different wasn't the bone-chilling cold or the constant threat of enemy fire, it was the silence. For 3 days, Dragos and his men had encountered no resistance, no civilians, no wildlife. Even the wind seemed muted, as if the mountain itself was holding its breath. The villages they passed through were abandoned, but not in the way you'd expect from war refugees. Doors were left wide open, meals sat half-finished on tables, and, in several houses, they found personal belongings arranged in strange patterns on the floors. Circles of jewelry, photographs placed face down in perfect rows. Children's toys stacked in impossible towers that defied gravity. On the fourth morning, Dragos sent his men back to base camp, while he continued alone to the highest observation point. The official report states he was conducting routine surveillance. The classified addendum tells a very different story. At approximately 11:30 in the morning, as Dragos reached the summit of Peak Moldoveanu, he noticed something wrong with the sky. The clouds, which had been rolling in from the west, suddenly stopped moving. Not slowed down, stopped completely, as if someone had pressed pause on the entire atmosphere. That's when he saw them. Footprints. Human footprints. Pressed into the clouds themselves as clearly as if they'd been stamped into fresh snow. But these weren't small marks or vague impressions. According to Dragos's testimony, each footprint was roughly 10 feet long and 4 feet wide, and they formed a perfect trail stretching from the eastern horizon all the way to the west, disappearing into the distance. But here's what makes this story truly terrifying. Dragos wasn't the only one who saw them. 3 weeks earlier, the German High Command had received similar reports from the Eastern Front. Soviet pilots reported seeing giant footprints in the clouds above Stalingrad. British reconnaissance planes photographed unexplained impressions in cloud formations over the North Sea. And deep in the archives of the Vatican, there are records of Italian peasants reporting footprints in the sky above Rome, always appearing during the darkest hours of the war. What connects all these sightings? What connects them to the classified research facility known only as Station Prometheus, hidden deep beneath the Swiss Alps? Station Prometheus was officially a weather research station. Unofficially, it housed Project Celestial Pathway, a joint German-Italian operation that was attempting to weaponize human consciousness itself. The project was led by Dr. Wilhelm Krantz, a former student of Carl Jung, who had become obsessed with what he called psychic archaeology, the idea that human thoughts and emotions could leave permanent impressions on the physical world. Krantz believed that extreme psychological trauma, particularly the kind experienced by soldiers in combat, could create what he termed consciousness fossils, permanent scars in reality that could be observed and even manipulated. His experiments involved taking prisoners of war, both military and civilian, and subjecting them to psychological torture designed to push their minds beyond the breaking point. But Krantz wasn't content with earthbound experiments. He theorized that if consciousness could leave impressions on solid matter, it could also affect less dense mediums like cloud formations and atmospheric moisture. His goal was to create a weapon that could project terror directly into enemy minds by literally writing fear across the sky. The footprints that Sergeant Dragos saw weren't natural phenomena. They were the psychic impressions of hundreds of test subjects who had been forced to walk endless circles while undergoing psychological torture. Their minds so shattered that their final moments of lucidity left permanent scars on reality itself. But the true horror of Station Prometheus wasn't discovered until Allied forces found the facility in April of 1945. When American troops breached the underground complex, they found it completely empty except for a single room at the deepest level. The walls were covered in footprints, not painted or carved, but somehow pressed directly into the solid concrete, as if the stone itself had been soft clay. The prints led from floor to ceiling, across the walls, and even onto the ceiling itself, creating an impossible maze of human steps that followed no earthly logic. In the center of the room, they found Dr. Kranz's final journal entry. It was written in what appeared to be blood, though analysis later proved it was actually a mixture of human tears and cerebrospinal fluid. The entry, translated from German, read, "They are walking now, not just here, but everywhere. The consciousness fossils have achieved locomotion. God forgive us, we have taught the dead to dance in the sky." But what happened to Sergeant Dragos? After reporting the footprints, Dragos was immediately transferred to a military psychiatric facility in Bucharest. His official diagnosis was combat fatigue with hallucinatory episodes. For 6 months, he remained under observation, insisting that the footprints were real and that he could still see them whenever he looked up at the sky. Then, on September 21, 1943, something extraordinary happened. During his morning walk in the hospital courtyard, Dragos suddenly stopped, looked up, and began to laugh. Not the bitter laugh of a broken man, but the pure, joyous laughter of someone who had just understood a wonderful joke. He told the attending nurse that he finally understood what the footprints were trying to show him. That night, Dragos walked out of his locked room, past the guards, through 3 security checkpoints, and out of the hospital. Nobody saw him leave. Nobody remembers him passing by. He simply vanished, as if he had stepped out of reality itself. His body was found 3 days later at the exact spot where he had first seen the footprints. He was lying face up, arms spread wide, an expression of absolute peace on his face. But here's the detail that was classified for 8 decades. When they found him, his feet were 6 inches off the ground, suspended in mid-air as if he were lying on invisible steps. The footprints in the sky above his body were so clear that the recovery team could see them with the naked eye. But the story doesn't end there. In 1970, a Romanian mountaineer named Constantin Petrescu reported seeing footprints in the clouds above the same peak where Dragos had made his discovery. Petrescu was an experienced climber, a rational man who had no knowledge of the wartime incidents. But his description matched Dragos's report in every detail. In 1955, a group of Soviet geologists working in the area reported similar sightings. In 1993, 50 years exactly after Dragos's first encounter, a NATO monitoring station recorded unexplained atmospheric disturbances that appeared to move in the pattern of human footsteps. And in 2003, exactly 60 years later, satellite imagery captured something that made the Romanian government classify the entire Făgăraș region as a restricted zone. The satellites photographed a continuous trail of cloud depressions stretching across Eastern Europe, from Romania all the way to the Swiss Alps. The depressions appeared to be caused by pressure from above, as if something massive and invisible was walking across the sky, following the exact same path that the wartime reports had described. But here's what makes this truly chilling. When meteorologists analyzed the satellite data, they discovered that the footprint-shaped depressions weren't random. They were getting deeper each year, as if whatever was creating them was getting heavier, more solid, more real. The most recent satellite images, taken just last year, show that the footprints now extend down through multiple layers of atmosphere. Whatever walked across the clouds in 1943 is still walking, and it's getting closer to the ground. Local residents near the Carpathian Mountains report strange dreams where they see a figure walking across the sky. In these dreams, the figure is always too far away to see clearly, but it's always getting closer. And when they wake up, they find muddy footprints on their bedroom floors, even though their windows are closed and their doors are locked. The Romanian government denies that any of this is real. They claim that Station Prometheus never existed, that Project Celestial Pathway is fiction, and that Sergeant Mihail Dragos died in combat in 1943. But deep in their archives, they maintain a file, codenamed Skywalker, which is updated every time someone reports seeing footprints in the clouds. The file is over 3,000 pages long now, so the next time you're outside and you look up at the clouds, pay attention. If you see impressions that look like footprints, don't dismiss them as imagination. Don't tell yourself it's just your eyes playing tricks. Because somewhere above you, in the space between Earth and heaven, something that was once human is still walking. And according to the latest reports, it's learning to walk faster. The footprints are getting closer together, the intervals between sightings are getting shorter, and the dreams are spreading beyond the Carpathian Mountains. Last month, a commercial pilot flying over the North Atlantic reported seeing footprints in the cloud layer below his aircraft. 2 weeks ago, a weather balloon in Alaska captured images of atmospheric disturbances that matched the footprint pattern. And just last week, a meteorologist in northern Canada reported seeing what she described as impossible depressions moving across the cloud cover in a walking pattern. Whatever Sergeant Mihail Dragos saw in 1943, whatever Dr. Wilhelm Krantz created in his underground laboratory, it's still out there. It's still walking. And after 8 decades of taking steps across the sky, it might finally be ready to come down to Earth. The question isn't whether the footprints in the sky are real. The question is, what happens when whatever is making them finally decides to stop walking and start running? Sweet dreams, and remember to keep your eyes on the sky. But maybe, just maybe, it's better if you don't look too closely at what you might see up there, because some things that are lost should stay lost. Some experiments should never have been conducted, and some footprints should never be followed, especially when they lead from Earth to heaven and back again. The story of Sergeant Mihail Dragos and the footprints in the sky reminds us that the line between reality and nightmare is thinner than we'd like to believe. And sometimes, when we peer too deeply into the impossible starts peering back. Until next time, stay curious, stay skeptical, and whatever you do, don't follow the footprints you see in the clouds. They might just lead you somewhere you can never come back from.